welcome to another Tears League episode. And first and foremost, I would like to apologize to everyone that subscribed to the page, everyone that's a fan of Tears League. I had some personal issues and I just needed a break. And I would like to thank everyone, all my assistant commissioners who stepped up and did their part when it comes to tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 beginners league and free agent league. And I appreciate everyone in Big 12 because they actually run the whole league themselves, which they should be able to do. And with that being said, we just had the trade deadline, and this is where we're at for the last 4 years for our tiers league, and it's a big improvement every single year for every single tier. So that means we are actually going in the right direction if we're being completely honest. And what is the right direction? People think that I just like trading, and just trade with no purpose, etc., which is not the case. The point of I wanting people to trade is not everyone, not every year. Everybody's situation is not the same. You might draft a really good team, and you might not have to trade as much. But the point of trading, that's not the situation. That's probably the situation for four, if that, amount of players in the league. Majority of the league needs to trade because that means you don't have the best team. That means your team is probably poor because you draft bad, or you had injuries which make your team horrible and you have to make moves, or you are a low seed and you need to find a way to switch your team up, make a decision. Don't just sit on your ass. That's the point of trading. And over the years, it's improved a lot. When it comes to my tiers league, it's hold to a certain standard. I don't like casuals. If you're going to be a part of my tiers league, you have to be something you like to do, something you want to do. You feel me? I appreciate every single person that comes to my league and gives 100% effort. That's really all I care about. I want to improve. I want to be good. I want to climb the ladder. If you don't care to climb the ladder to be in Big 12, then this is not the league for you. Just say Mountain. I don't care for none of these stuff. Just put me in the casual league, which is free agent league. Like that's what the free agent league is for. I don't bother a soul in that league. I more so when it comes to beginners league, that's the standard. Beginners league and up to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, Big 12. And again, sometimes the GMs is not bad. They're just in the wrong tier. Like some GMs are just more invested than you. And you would just me as a commissioner, as somebody that's scouting everybody, I would just find the right tier where you can be yourself. Because if you are in the wrong tier and you're not doing what you're doing, you're gonna hear from me the whole year. You're gonna hear from me the whole year. It's like I'm gonna be picking at you. But with that being said, let's move on to Big 12.
Okay, so we're going to start off with Big 12's Week 16 results. It was a road week. We have Mountain versus Gino. Mountain took that game. Kimoy versus Richie. Kimoy won. Shamoy versus Ju. Shamoy won that game. Rain versus Kadim. Rain won. Chris versus Plucky. Chris took that one. And Vashel versus Iva, with Iva winning that one.
And before we move on, this was the last road matchup, and the East took the head-to-head 27-15. And with that being said, this is your Big 12 Week 16 GM of the Week. We have Mr. Iva. We call this one a skin of a teat. Vashel could have win that game if he just made the right pickups. But I ain't gonna lie, Iva been streaking lately. He won his last 3 out of 4 matchups. So yeah, Iva, your GM of the week. And moving on to your Big 12 Week 17 power rankings.
We have number 1 is Mountain, 2 is Shamoy, 3 is Kimoy, 4 is Chris, 5 is Ju, 6 is Rain, Gino is at 7, Richie at 8, Plucky at 9, Iva is 10, Vashel is 11, and Kadim at 12.
And on your right, we have your Big 12 standings. In the East, we have me at 1, Kimoy at 2, Shamoy at 3, Chris at 4, Rain at 5, Vashel is at 6. In the West, we have Ju at 1, Gino at 2, Plucky at 3, Richie at 4, Kadim at 5, and Iva is at 6. And now we're going to move on to Richie's Big 12 parlay for week 17. In the East, we have Chris versus Kimoy, Rain versus Shamoy, Vachel versus Mountain. In the West, we have Plucky versus Ju, Richie versus Kadeem, and Iva versus Gino. And then you know how it is in your top right, we have last week's results for Richie's parlay. And right now, he's currently 63 out of 96, and he went 4 for 6 for last week. With that being said, let me look at the prime time game of the week. And the reason why it's a prime time matchup of the week, like I said, I feel like this is the most meaningful matchup of the week. A win for Kimoy, we're going to have it comfortable and knowing like, yeah, I for sure going to make the playoff. And if Chris win, then it's like, I might not make the playoffs, especially if Rain win. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what happened with this matchup right here. And then speaking of Rain, he has one of the key matchups of the week. He versus Shamoy. Another matchup right here. Both Rain and Shamoy is 1-on-1 versus each other for the season. Again, that tiebreaker is important. If Rain and Chris happens to win this week, that's a lot of pressure on Shamoy and Kimoy. And to top it all off, Shamoy don't even have Giannis. So it's going to be a very interesting week when it comes to these two matchups right here for this tough conference. Then we have at least one team in the West. We have Gino versus Iva. Right now, Gino is 2 for 8 in his last 10 games. And right now, Iva is streaking. He won 3 out of his last 4 matchups. Iva have to win this game if he want to continue his playoff push. And before we move on to Tier 3, let me get into Big 12 Demotion Watch. And this is the last Demotion Watch, Promotion Watch conversations I'm going to have for the year. The next time I talk about who's getting demoted or who's getting promoted, probably in the summer. Same routine as always. And yeah, and again, before I continue, a lot can change. A lot can change from now to the summer. So right now, yes, Kadeem will probably be going back to Tier 3 next year. Like, it's done. It's a done. Like, his bags is packed. He have his plane tickets for next year. He just doing out the contract. Then we have Plucky and Rain. Again, it's kind of tough. Right now, Plucky is 7-9 and Rain is 8-8. But Rain is the 5th seed, but Plucky is the 3rd seed. And it's like, you get where I'm coming from? Other conference harder than this conference, so it's like, how can I put Rain at 2? You feel where I'm coming from? It's a weird situation, so it's like a lot to watch, a lot to pay attention to for these next couple of weeks. So right now, yeah, Plucky's at 2, but it's like an even feel when it comes to those two. And Kimoy is safe. He just bought himself another year in Big 12. Now that he won his 10th game, he will be at 500 plus, so he is safe. But with that being said, we're going to move on to Tier 3.
Okay, Tier 3 Week 16 results. We have Risha versus Ricky. Ricky took that one. Jimbo versus Turbo. Jimbo won that game. Ernie versus Chabo. Ernie won. Ish versus Jed. Jed took that one. Ras versus Manny. Manny won. And Brett versus Draco. Brett won that game.
And then 21 and 21. A tie for both East and West Conference and these road matchups for Tier 3. And I can see why. But with that being said, let me get into Week 17 Tier 3 Power Rankings. And we have Jimbo at 1, Ricky at 2, Jed at 3, Turbo at 4, Ernie at 5, Risha at 6, Brett is 7, 8 is Russ, 9 is Chabo, 10 is Manny, 11 is Ish, and 12 is Draco. And then when you slide to the right, you have the Tier 3 standings with Jimbo at 1, Ernie at 2, Risha at 3, Russ at 4, Ish is at 5, Draco is at 6. And in the West, we have Ricky at 1, Jed at 2, Turbo at 3, Brett at 4, 5 is Chabo, and 6 is Manny. And when it comes to Tier 3, we start off in the East. I ain't gonna lie, like I said, Jimbo right now, 16-0, that pressure, boy. You got 20-0, you have to win. I won't say that's too much pressure, but just know you have to win. You have to win. Have to win. Right now, Arnie, catch yourself. Like, Arnie been doing really good. That Risha Ross, I ain't gonna lie, y'all have to win. Have to win. Ish Draco have to win. If I want to make playoffs, you have to win. And then in the West, we have Ricky, Jed, and Tobo. Y'all want to have that top seed over there because I don't think Jed wants to play Ricky in the first round, or I don't feel Ricky wants to play Jed or Tobo, or the same with Tobo. I don't think you want to play Jed or Ricky in the first round. Like, you have to win. And right now, it's looking like Bread might be the fourth seed. Chabo like I said, though, these conference matchups is important. Chabo have to win these next 4 weeks if you want to make playoffs, and you gotta hope Bread start losing. So right now, that's what we have for tier 3. Alright, so moving on to Gino tier 3 parlay for week 17. In the East, we have Ross versus Jimbo, Risha versus Arnie, Ish versus Draco. In the West, we have Tobo versus Ricky, Bread versus Jed, and Chabo versus Manny. Top right, we have your last week results for Gino. He went 5 for 6, and overall he is 62 and 96. Before we move on to your demotion watch, this is your tier 3 week 16 GM of the week. It goes to Mr. Ricky, a man among boys. Right now he's currently on top of his conference, and he's right now been scoring a lot for these last couple of weeks, even though he lose Jalen Johnson. So that is surprisingly how strong his team is and how dangerous it would have been even if he still had Jalen Johnson. So right now, tier 3 GM of the week goes to Mr. Ricky, a man among boys. And before we move on to tier 2, this is your tier 3 demotion watch. Right now, like I said, Ashley is over with for Draco. He is 5 for 11. He is not going to be over 500. That's it for him. So that is one slot wide open. Right now, Ish is 6 and 10. If you lose the next game, that's it. And then we have Chabo at 3. I can't really demote Chabo. It wouldn't be fair to him, but this is his first bad year ever in fantasy. Like, in any tiers, he has never been under 500 ever, not once. So right now he is 5 and 11. I won't penalize him for that, so we would probably just have 2 slots open for tier 3, not including Ross. So Ross is already in. 2 more people could get in from tier 2. And then Manny on the bottom having a horrible year. Because he won a ring in tier 3, that's going to give you 1 more year where he can prove himself 1 more year in tier 3. And he'll be on demotion watch next year. So right now we are Draco and Ish. That's the main focus when it comes to who's getting demoted out of tier 3. So this is your week 16 results for tier 2, and it was a road matchup.
We have Bash versus JP. Bash won that game. Javon versus Ras. Ras took that one. Ian versus MJ. MJ won. Jordan versus Grove. Grove won that. Black versus Demoy. Black took that game. And Rishan versus Brandon. Brandon won that game.
And this is your week 17 tier 2 power rankings.
We have Ras at 1, Brandon at 2, MJ at 3, Grove at 4, Bash is 5, 6 is Javon, Jordan is 7, JP is 8, Locke is 9, Demoy is 10, Rishan at 11, and Ian at 12. Moving on to tier 2 standings, we have in the East, Jordan at 1, Bash at 2, Rish is 3, Javon is 4, Demoy is 5, 6 is Ian. In the West, Ras is 1, Brandon is 2, MJ is 3, Grove is 4, Locke is 5, and JP is 6.
Like I said, in the East, when it comes to tier 2, I don't feel none of these teams is better than any team in the West. Maybe Jordan, maybe he better than Locke right now, but Locke just lose 80. That's tough. So I don't feel Locke can make playoffs again after that. But he just traded for him, and that's tough. That's a tough L. JP, like I said, you can still make playoffs, but you have to win these games. You have to win. When it comes to, like I said, in the West, Ross, Brandon, MJ, Grove, I honestly don't know who can win when it comes to those 4. Like,
all of them tough. They all tough. They all tough. So I don't know. We'll see. I feel like it's who gonna be the most healthiest team gonna win when it comes to that group. But I will say this: we have 3 teams, 11-5. You want to have that number 1 record in the league. You need them extra points. Get them extra points. Have to get them extra points. In the East, I don't really have much to say when it comes to East, but Javon, Demoy, Rich losing, like who? I don't know. I feel like Brash gonna make playoff, but that Rich, Javon, Demoy, these next 4 weeks is going to be a movie for every single Tiers League because you have to win. These last 4 conference matchup, the schedule is set up out this way for a certain reason. Like, it's a movie. Trust and believe. It's a movie. It's going to be tough. Like, it's going to be tough. But with that being said, let's move on to Chris Tier 2 Parlay.
In the East, we have Bash versus Demoy, Javon versus Jordan, Ian versus Rashawn. In the West, Grove versus Luck, MJ versus JP, and Russ versus Brandon. Last week results, he was 5 for 6. His total is 65 out of 96.
But before we move on to Tier 1, let me see what Chris, Richie, and Gino is at when it comes to their parlays for the year. So, when it comes to the parlays for the year, Richie is 63 out of 96, Gino is 62 out of 96, and Chris is 65 out of 96 with the lead where Chris is at 1, Richie is at 2, and Gino is at 3. Well, Gino, you have 4 more weeks. You have to get perfect because them 3 wins Chris have. That's a little gap. He been streaking lately. And like I said, when it comes to Tier 1, I'm not getting too much into it. I'll be honest why. I kind of was like, man, let me start this next week. But I was like, you know what? I gonna do it. But this is your Tier 1 Week 17 power rankings. We have Luck at 1, Pure at 2, Chad at 3, Marcel is at 4, 5 is Winston, 6 is Slick, 7 is Rhino, 8 is Joseph, 9 is Dylan, 10 is Gillo, 11 is Kerry, and 12 is Sharif. And I didn't show nothing, no demotion watch for Tier 2, Tier 1, or I probably not gonna show nothing else for those leagues. It kind of like pointless. But with that being said, that's really it for my Tiers League. I hope I enjoy this, quick and fast episode, and yeah, enjoy your day.